Does music have a special place in your heart? Have you ever experienced healing from music? Because I know I definitely have. Whether it's a feisty song to help me get over a breakup, or a powerful worship song to remind me that I'm loved. Sometimes it's even a sad song simply to help me cry. Music can actually be a powerful tool to help us cope with our mental health struggles. Now, if you consider yourself an early fan of NBC's The Voice, then you might recognize today's guest. Her name is Gracia, and she was actually on Team Blake during season 3. And even though it was an incredible experience, the years that followed were really hard, as Gracia dealt with burnout, depression, increased anxiety, alcoholism, and even relationship trauma. But now she's coming out on the other side, ready to do music once again, and also share her mental health story. So without further ado, here is my special guest and new friend, Gracia. Welcome to Drawn, the podcast that draws you in with stories of hope, healing, and even a little hustle while battling anxiety and depression. Think you have to wait until you've conquered your mental illness to start living a joyful, meaningful life? Think again. Conquering your mental illness is part of living a life you love, and we're going to figure it out together. I'm Katie Rochetko, and this is Drawn. Welcome to the show, Gracia. I am so excited to have you here.
I am too. Hi.
Hello. This is cool because this is our first time actually talking on the phone for just almost as if we're having a face-to-face conversation. We've been texting for a while now, but it's great to hear your voice. You have such an infectious energy already. I know this is going to be a really fun podcast.
I love that. Thank you. Likewise. It's just crazy. I feel like we have so much in common already, so I'm so excited
I know.
for this.
What do they call that? Kindred spirit vibes and stuff. So let's kind of set the stage first of all by congratulating you on your new single, Hey. It is an amazing song. It's so fun. I literally have put it on the top of my Pump Me Up Before You Go playlist, which is my happy music. All of my energy comes from that playlist, especially in the mornings on my drive to work. I love it. So congratulations.
Thank you. I love that I'm a part of that playlist. I love the name. That's awesome.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about the story of the song and, kind of how it came to be.
So I actually wrote it because so I sat down and I really just had a guitar thing going, and I initially started writing it about something completely different, and then it kind of just felt more right to write it about what it is now. So it's kind of about how I used to be a little bit of a wild child. I used to go out all the time, and I had been really hurt in past relationships. I mean, who hasn't? And I was just nope, I'm being single. I'm not letting my guard down again. I'm just casual relationships all the way. I'm not gonna get into that and get hurt. And then I meet this guy who is my boyfriend, and we fall in love, and he's really great. He's amazing. So yeah, it's a love story.
It is a love story. It's an adorable love story, and I love that it is, it's a real love story. It's not just I just kind of created this fictional story that had a cool beat to it, but it is the story of you and your boyfriend. That's so awesome. How long have you guys been together?
It's been 3 years, so.
Wow, congratulations. Yes. That's exciting.
Thank you. We're getting ready to do the music video, and he's also my actual boyfriend in the video.
Oh,
so
I love
so
that.
excited.
It's funny. That was literally going to be my next question. When is the music video coming out? Because I did watch the one for Boys in a Beach Town. So cute. That song is also very catchy. So I was hoping that there would be a music video for Hey, too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, girl. You know it.
Are you filming it in Illinois?
I said getting ready to film it, but I meant getting ready to put it out. We actually went to Miami to do it, just because I figured since it's springtime, the weather is kind of iffy, and I was this song deserves sunshine and pretty vibes, and so we went to a tropical location for that.
Hey, I am all about that. Now that the weather is starting to get a little bit warmer where I'm at in Virginia, I just want to spend all of my time outdoors. I would love to go to the beach, but mountains will have to do, so I totally respect that, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. So definitely keep us posted on when the release date is going to be. But then another follow-up question, is there more songs in the work that you have planned?
Yes, so I've been writing quite a bit. And I'm still undecided on the format I'll be releasing them in. I'm kind of like, I might do an EP or I might just do a couple more singles this year, but regardless, I definitely do have more stuff in the works. So more to come. I've
Okay.
kind of taken like a little bit of a break for a couple years. And so now I'm just like at it full speed. So tons of new stuff.
Well, I'm excited. Okay, guys, you heard it here first, folks. Okay, new songs definitely coming out soon. You'll have to be on the lookout for all of them. And of course, I'll put all of the information about where to find you and how to get access to those songs in the description in the bio of this podcast. But Gracia, I really am so excited to have you here. I wanted to start off by talking about your song Hey, because honestly, singing to you is probably a huge part of your identity, right?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So not only is singing a part of your identity, a lot of people might recognize you from the girl who yodeled on The Voice. Like literally every article that I read in preparation for this article was like, she yodeled her way onto The Voice and all this stuff. And I was like, that's so cool. I love it. And I want to talk about your experience with on The Voice because I know it was probably a big turning point in your career. But let's start all the way back at the beginning, if you don't mind. I'm really curious about little Gracia Harrison and really what was your childhood like? Because I know you're from a small town in Illinois.
Yeah, so I'm from a small town in Illinois, like you said, probably like 3,000 people. So I grew up in the middle of a cornfield, and I don't tell this story very often, but I guess it is probably like a pretty crucial part of like development, like what it was like foreshadowing what I was going to be. So like we used to have out in the middle of a cornfield, used to have this big barn, and it had like this circle thing in it, like concrete, like where a grain silo used to be, and it kind of jutted out from the barn, like almost like an amphitheater, So, and there was just like open space, so I would go out there all the time and like sing and just have my own little concerts in my head, and I was like, always pretending I was just having these huge shows, and so I started. It's so funny to me now. And I was always putting on shows for my parents, like in the living room in costumes. I've always been a little extra, if you will. Still am. And I used to always sing. And then I got into like church choir and stuff because people were always like, you should like sing. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. So my mom made me, and thank God she did. And then I just kept getting more and more comfortable with singing in front of people. I started doing like county fair talent shows and then state fairs. And then one time I opened for Luke Bryan when he was like no one, but he had like one song. He had All My Friends Say. He had just kind of gotten some recognition, was kind of starting to blow up, and I opened for him, and like that feeling, I was like, I have to find a way to like do this the rest of my life because this is amazing. I didn't really know when or how, and I auditioned for Idol a couple times, didn't make it, auditioned for The Voice, and I didn't make it, and then I went back and auditioned for The Voice, and that time I did make it, so that's
wow. So throughout your whole life, you've kind of had this string of performance and singing and songwriting and stuff. But you mentioned that you didn't want to join the choir at first. Were you nervous about singing in front of people? Like you were comfortable singing to the cornfields, but now you want to sing in front of people. Was that like an anxiety moment for you of just like, I can't do that?
Yeah, I guess it was just kind of like self-doubt because the only people who had told me were good that I was good was like my mom and like my mom's friends, so it's like, oh well, you have to say that.
Yes.
And so yeah, I guess I was just nervous to like, which it is kind of nerve-wracking. People tell me all the time, they're like, I don't know how you get up there and do that, which now it's just like I'm more comfortable singing in front of people than I am public speaking. So but yeah, so it was just a little nerve-wracking, but
sure,
that quickly went away.
Okay, and we're so glad that it did because obviously now you're putting out amazing music now. So we love our mamas. Thank God for them pushing us when we know we need to be pushed.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You've also mentioned that you have ADD, and then you've also talked about not only seasons of anxiety but depression as well. So I'm curious, if you look back in your childhood now, where do you see, I guess, those cracks in your mental health start to emerge?
So I don't think I ever really noticed it until the older I got. And I would say obviously, I feel like being a woman, we have it a lot harder because, hormones play a huge part in that. And it's not something that's really talked about, that's part of the reason why. But also, like, I had some childhood trauma in my parents' relationship. They kind of had a pretty rocky relationship while I was growing up. My dad was kind of in and out of the picture. He wasn't always the most faithful to my mom, and they would fight a lot. And so I feel like the older I got, it just kind of, that somehow has played into a lot of it. And then I had some like traumatic relationships when I got older, and I don't know, it's just kind of, I feel like it didn't really hit me until I was a little bit older. Anxiety, I feel like I've probably had like my whole life.
Okay, yep,
So
relatable, yep.
that's for sure been around a hot minute. And yeah, the depression, it's just kind of, I found ways to cope with it now. So I feel like I don't really have it that much, but there's definitely been points that have been very, very low. But the anxiety, that's stuck around.
Yes. Now, what exactly is it that triggers your anxiety?
I don't know. And I feel like it's kind of fluctuated. I do notice around like certain times of the month for me, and it could be whenever, like, not necessarily that time as a female. It's just kind of whenever I notice there's like a couple days where I'm just super on edge, very like panicky, and then I feel like when I was younger, it was kind of like any like distrust for people, which I feel like probably came from watching my dad and stuff, like a subconscious thing. So that was always really hard in relationships. Like I would get really anxious and really panicky. And I think now it's kind of become, now that I've learned to overcome that, it's also caused by ADD for sure, because I try to do as much as I can in a little bit of time, because I procrastinate all the time, and then I just break down and I'm like, I can't handle this.
And so
and it's awful.
That's interesting that you said that, because obviously we know that ADD kind of manifests itself differently in girls than it does in boys, which is why when it's in girls, it often goes unrecognized and then especially untreated. And so for you, let's talk about that. Like, what does ADD look like in you?
So, yeah, I never knew. So my brother had it. I would say my dad probably has it. My mom has it. And usually it is kind of like a hereditary thing. So my sisters definitely have it. But I never really, like you said, as a woman, you're not really aware of what it's like. A lot of doctors aren't even aware, like a lot of them misdiagnose women. And that's a common thing, unfortunately. And so I saw a TikTok. I learn everything from TikTok. And and I saw this video, and she was like naming off all the things that are symptoms of ADHD or ADD in women. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. And it was like procrastinating, time blindness, not being able to retain anything, like when you read things or when you hear things. Like my boyfriend's always getting really frustrated with me because he's very like neurotypical, and I'll like say something, or he'll say something, and 10 minutes later I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, do you even listen at all? And I'm like, no, I promise, like I'm trying. My brain just halfway is like, okay, I'm done. So it's so like things like that. And there's like a couple other things that I don't feel like are really symptoms for me, but things that you wouldn't guess, they're not the textbook symptoms of ADD in women. So it's, yeah, I kind of self-diagnosed, which I've always kind of had an inkling, because I've noticed it's hard for me to get things done, and it's not for a lack of trying. It's just like I just get so overwhelmed, and it's hard to describe it. It's just like my brain's like, like it's hard to focus, like doing anything. I'll start one task, and then I'm like, oh wait, like halfway through, brushing my teeth, and like, oh wait, I should go like wipe down the countertops, and do the dishes. And then I'm like, oh wait, there's a towel over there. I should go start the laundry.
Okay, so that's really interesting because I'd never heard of those kind of symptoms of ADD, but I'm curious, do you have to defend different aspects of your life because people don't understand, like your boyfriend who thinks that you're not listening when you are, but now it's like, okay, as an adult, some of the symptoms of ADD, they might not necessarily be positive adult traits, and you're like, no, like I really am trying, but my brain is just going haywire sometimes. So
Yes.
how does that affect, I guess, people's opinions of you, and how do you have to combat that?
It's been difficult because I've never really known why. And I'm just like, kind of get anxiety over that. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I really just like a failure? Like, am I really, and then once I figured out it was ADD, I've kind of been like, oh, that makes sense. And so I'm like, okay, well, it's not really me. It's just my brain just literally does whatever it wants. I do usually try to be like, I'm sorry, and tell people why, especially like even just doing things with music, like trying to get it all done can be a little overwhelming. And sometimes I'm bad at replying. Deadlines can be tough for me. I'm trying to be better about it. But yeah, I'm always being like, please forgive me. Like, I promise I'm trying.
Yeah. So
I'm
and
definitely I'm like not even type B. I'm like type Z. I'm like the farthest away from type A that there possibly is.
which is hilarious because I am like your poster child for a type A personality.
I cannot relate.
Honestly, I think that's probably why we'll be great friends though, is because we're so different. It'll have that like opposites attract thing.
Yeah, I envy that so much. I would love to be type A for sure.
Careful what you wish for because there are some downsides to it. The analness and the inability to like cope with change very well. Those are some of the deep struggles. It's like as soon as the plan changes,
well,
I'm like throwing up my hands like, Jesus, take the wheel. I can't do this
Well,
anymore.
I am a Taurus. I don't know how into astrology you are, but I feel like I'm that way anyway. I'm so anal about things, and I'm so stubborn. And I'm
Yeah.
like, if things aren't like the way I thought they were going to be, I'm like, oh my gosh, like my whole day. I'm pretty good with the flow, but it takes me a second.
Yes.
Like,
Okay.
okay, it's fine.
I love that. It's so relatable to a lot of people I know. So I'm curious as to, as you're learning about ADD and you're learning about anxiety and depression and how it manifests in your life, how do you give yourself grace when you're in those moments, when you're having anxiety or when you know that ADD is affecting you?
I take Xanax. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, sometimes I have to. Like, there's been times I've been so stressed. I'm like, I just have to. Working out though helps me a lot, and I feel like I've managed. The ADD is something that I feel like I'm still trying to figure out how to get a grasp on. The anxiety that comes from it, I've tried to just tell myself, like, you're doing the best you can. And sometimes my to-do list is not realistic for the whole entire day. It's like you can't do 25 things. I've tried to go off like people say you should pick 3 things, 3 or 4 things a day to accomplish. And that's a pretty realistic goal. So I try to do that. But yeah, sometimes when I can't get to it or I'm too stressed, I'm just like, you're a human and it's okay to not be a robot. And I think our society, I think the pandemic actually has taught a lot of people, myself included, that, you can't just be going, and it's okay to not, like it's okay to just be a human and have a normal day and not be overexerting yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, which I find myself doing that a lot because the ADD and like, procrastinating, but I'm trying to get better at it. I'm getting better at it.
Well, it's probably like one of those
and
lifelong struggles too,
Yeah, and it's different for everyone, so I think it's just finding the best way to cope with it. Can give yourself a little grace because then you're not so all over the place and you kind of can get a grip on it. And then, yeah, just reminding yourself that you're a human and you're not perfect and,
Combating
it's fine.
perfectionism is the hardest thing in the entire world that I think people have to do, honestly, but especially
Absolutely.
women. I mean, it's just, we see it everywhere we look, everything looks perfect, whether it's on our social media and we're looking at other people's profiles, or we're just comparing ourselves to, our friends and our neighbors and all these people. It can be so hard to feel like a failure in the midst of all this like projected perfectionism that's out there in the world.
Right. Oh my gosh, it's so hard. I mean, everything's a highlight reel, and like
Mm-hmm.
I've taken that into consideration even with myself. I'm like, okay, you aren't posting yourself right now wearing, your hair a mess and like I look like a rat right now and like haven't brushed my teeth. Like, it's like you aren't posting those aspects of their life. So you have to remind yourself that like we're all having the same experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the interesting things about mental health that I'm especially learning is kind of the compounding factors that usually when people deal with mental health, it's not just one thing. It's anxiety and depression, or it's depression and ADD, or anxiety and ADD, or whatever it is. And so I'm kind of curious for you, do you feel that compounding pressure of ADD is causing, life to go a certain way and your brain's kind of going haywire, and that makes you anxious, and the more anxious you get, the more your brain can't focus on anything? Do you kind of find yourself in that circle at all?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I feel like as a musician, especially these days with social media, we've kind of entered a phase where it's like you need to be putting out music constantly. You need to be posting constantly. You need to just constantly be putting yourself in front of people. And it's when you're ADD, it's hard because it's really hard to like post on TikTok, then Instagram, then go write a song. And then also like, I'm also anal and then like, clean the house and do all these because I can't have a dirty house. And I feel
Yep.
like sometimes I have to choose either or because there's so much, and it's overwhelming. And I think like it does kind of get discouraging for me because I feel like if I was type A, I'd probably get a lot more done. But I'm also a very firm believer that the universe, and God, like I think that's all connected. Not to get super religious here, but I believe that what's meant for you will come to you if you're putting out an effort and you're putting all your energy into that. So I think as long as you're trying, and I have to
Yeah.
remind myself that like everyone's different, everyone's process is different, the way people go, achieve their goals is different, and so, I have to tell myself like you're doing your best, and you know that's the most you can do.
Yeah, and the other thing too that I'm learning is that my best today might not be the same as my best tomorrow. I have the issue
Yes.
of if I have a really good Monday, like today, I was up early, I was getting a whole bunch of stuff done, I was checking things off my list. Now I feel this pressure and it's subconscious, but I know it's there to like match or exceed that level of productivity tomorrow, or else tomorrow's worse than today. And so it's this kind of compounding thing of like, well, if this is my best because look at all this stuff I did and I got done, then anything less than that makes me a lesser human being. And I have to go through and I have to be okay with the fact that no, my best today was only getting two things done, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like reminding yourself of that is crucial. It's so important,
Yeah.
especially like in in our society where it's like you should feel like you're going all the time, and it's like it's okay to just have a normal day and not overexert yourself and just live.
Yeah, just live your life and be
Like,
okay with the in between moments of, the two mountains top experiences that you've had. You don't automatically have to drop down to the valley. Like you can enjoy coming down off the mountain in a slow, easy kind of a way, just to live your life and have those normal days that make the good days what they are. Make them really good.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, with your
It,
mental health struggles, ADD, anxiety, how did that really affect your music career?
I feel like for a long time, it definitely had me discouraged because I just felt like there was so much and it's just overwhelming, at times. And so I think that's kind of why I took a break for like a long time and I just was like living. And so now I'm kind of going back at it full force. like I said earlier. And so I don't know. I feel like it's gotten better now that I've kind of figured out why I'm, the way that I am, and how to better cope with it, and better methods to be productive despite the mental, illness that I do have. And so, but it hasn't always been easy, that's for sure. So every day I'm working at getting better with it. But I take a lot of, I get a lot of comfort in knowing that I'm definitely not the only one. And I feel like a lot of creative people typically are type B. That's that's, kind of common, and do have ADD. There's a song I actually love a lot. It's by Kelsey Ballerini, and it's called Overshare. And it's kind of just gives me the same vibes as someone with ADD, which I love. So it's just nice to know that you're not the only one. And,
Exactly. Well, that's how I feel about Taylor Swift's new song, This Is Me Trying. Like, the first time I heard that, it was like, yes, because it's a song about giving yourself grace to be like, you know what? I don't have to be successful all the time. If I'm just showing up and trying, and I'm not giving up on life, or I'm not giving up on my goal, even if it's not a steady incline to the top or anything like that, like, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I am here, and that is enough. And to get to that place, especially for me, and I don't know if it's the same with you, where we suffer from comparison, and I'm looking at colleagues of mine or people I went to college with, and I'm like, look at all these things that they're doing. Am I even worth trying and pursuing my own dreams, because it seems to be taking so long sometimes. And I can't even imagine being in, the music field where it's so incredibly competitive. I can't even imagine. And yet you still show up despite the mental health issues, despite ADD, despite whatever struggles you've gone through. So I really love when music tugs at those heartstrings, and you're like, you finally have put into words what my heart has been feeling this whole time.
Yes. Well, and that's so true. And I think that's kind of why I took a break for so long, because, like, I think especially after coming off of a reality show, it's like you're pushed to the top so fast. And then once you kind of come off of that, you're kind of just back to being, like, I guess not a normal person. Like, you still have, like, you get some, like, great exposure and good opportunities from being on something like that. But, I think you feel like you have higher standards for yourself and expectations. And it took me a very long time to realize that, like, success is not defined in one way. And I would beat myself up all the time because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not with a label. Like, it's going to be so hard to get on a label. And, like, that's my only goal. That's the only way you can be successful. And I mean, thank God we're living in a different age with social media and, like, so many other ways to be a successful artist, because, I'm like, I like the amount, the amount of work that goes into that. I think that's why I was getting so discouraged. I was like, I can't do it all. And I think finally coming to that place, like you said, of just being like, I'm still successful, even though I might not be in, the top 1%. That doesn't mean that you're not successful. Everyone defines it different ways. So I think coming to terms with that has helped a lot, for sure.
Yeah, because, I mean, you were on The Voice, what? It was like 2013 or 14?
2012.
Oh, 2012. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, we're talking, it's been 8, 9 years now since then.
Yes.
I mean, that's crazy how much time has flown by. You're not the same person that you were when you went on The Voice.
No. Not even in the slightest, which is so crazy. And I feel like it's so weird because most people go on there once they're more established and stuff. And I'm always saying, like, I think I did things kind of backwards, which I'm not mad about, like, I think it's like either way, it worked out, it has worked out for me. So
and that was what, the 3rd season. So you're really like one of the OG contestants.
Yes.
So I'm curious. I know that was a while ago, but what was that experience like for you? Good, bad, and ugly.
It was incredible. I did suffer with a awful lot of anxiety when I was there, to the point that, like, even some of the, I haven't told many people this, that even some of the like contestant, I'm drawing a blank on the word. That's another sign of ADD. Um, the people that like worked with us as contestants, you know, behind the scenes and kind of managed us, like 24/7, kind of pulled me aside and they were like, you know, are you okay? Like, it doesn't seem like your head's in the game. And ironically, I went home the next round. So I always wonder if that had something to do with that. But my boyfriend back home was just like constantly going out, constantly like, you know, just doing all the things, accusing me of things, like of traumatic experience with that. And I was so young. Like, this was my first long relationship. So I had terrible anxiety while I was out there, just all the time. So that part of it really sucked. But the rest of it was amazing. Like, everyone on the show is so great. I made so many lasting friendships. And just, of course, the experience in general as an artist is something that I couldn't be more grateful for. And getting to be in LA, like, for so long and just hang out, you know, that was pretty awesome.
Because how many weeks were you on the show?
I don't know how they do it now, but I know back then things were pretty drawn out. So we were out there for like probably close to 6 months total that I spent time in LA, which I was not mad about. I was like, yeah, I'll stay.
Yeah, of course, because, you know, you're taking every chance you get to perform or every lesson that they're teaching you, you know, you're putting that in your repertoire and stuff. So the more time you're out there, you know, the more experience you get. But I can also imagine that 6 months away from home can be a lot. I mean, that's a huge change for your mind, body, and soul to have to go through. So it only makes sense that you were feeling a little anxious.
Absolutely.
I'm curious about, you know, kind of the comparison when you're on a show that is literally about comparison and you're competing against other contestants and stuff. You know, how did that play into your anxiety and what you thought about yourself going through this?
So actually, weirdly, I really didn't ever struggle with that.
Really?
I know I have friends that have been on other shows and they've said, you know, that's kind of been an issue, but I feel like, and I don't know if other seasons are this way, but I know mine was, and everyone on my team, I feel like we all had such a good relationship, and it was really just like family. I'm sure other people, I mean, obviously we all want to get ahead and we all want to, you know, advance on the show and stuff, but I feel like we all had such a good relationship. There wasn't any like bad blood or anything or
That's
any
awesome.
feelings of like, yeah, I mean, for me anyway, I guess I can't speak for everyone, but you know, even like whenever someone would go home, like, you know, it's not like we were like, had a bad relationship after that and stuff. Like, the girl who beat me, actually, we're still friends to this day.
That's fantastic. Oh, I love hearing that. I love knowing that little tidbit about the behind the scenes and stuff, because, you know, you don't always get this. And I know you were on Team Blake, so just out of curiosity, I have to know, what was it like working with him?
It was awesome. Yeah, Blake's really great. Unfortunately, we don't, like, you don't get a whole lot of time with them. Except when it's filming until you get to the live rounds. But the time that we did hang out, he's really funny. He's definitely got a great sense of humor.
Okay, I love that. And you actually got 3 of the judges to turn their chairs around. So when you're performing I Want to Be a Cowboy Sweetheart, and, you know, Adam Levine turns his chair around first, I mean, what's going through your mind? Because you didn't miss a beat. Like, you just kept performing, and I was like, in my mind, I would be freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, he just turned his chair around. Oh my God, he's just turning his chair around. So what was that like for you?
They like drilled that into our heads. They were like, there have been contestants that just see the chairs and they just stop singing and they're like, don't do that. Like, keep going, pretend they're not there. And so thankfully my choreography was like me running all over the stage. So I just didn't look at them. I was like, I'm just going to watch the audience. And I mean, it doesn't, I feel like, look that big on TV at first until they get, you know, the big wide angle views of it. But, it's a pretty big room, so I was just looking out in the crowd, and then they don't put the sound effects in until later. So I look over, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like all 3 of them had been turned around, and I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, just keep going. Like, my legs are jello. I'm just like, I thought in the moment, I was like, I probably sound awful because I'm shaking.
And you hadn't
Like,
even
I
gotten
was
to the
so
yodeling part
nervous.
yet.
So nervous.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's amazing. I loved going back and watching that. And I'm curious as to what happened after that. I mean, it's not like it's a all of a sudden giant rise to the top and there you are, right?
Right. Well, and that was something that I really struggled with for a long time. It was kind of like, where do I go from here? And not only that, but I was so young. It was just kind of like I still wanted time to go live my life. And so I wanted to go like experience being, in my young 20s. And so music kind of took a bit of a backseat because I also was just a little discouraged. I think it's maybe a little easier if you've been doing it for a long time and then you go on The Voice, where I feel like mine was kind of backwards. Um, I went on The Voice and now I've kind of been doing it independently. So it's kind of flip flop. So it's been a like less traditional journey. I feel like for me. But yeah, it's difficult, just going back to normal life after being on, a huge TV show. So that
Right.
was weird.
And I'm curious too,
Um,
when do, like, in comparison, when they start filming to when we actually see it air, is there like a major like gap in between?
we filmed over the summer, and then it aired in September. So there's a bit of a lag. And then the live episodes, of course, those actually are live. So just everything until that is pre-recorded a couple months beforehand.
So that probably was really weird that all of this experience has happened over the 6 months that you were in LA, but no one knows what's happened
Yeah.
yet. And you have to go back to the quote unquote real world. And I mean, what were you allowed to say? I mean, you couldn't really talk about it because you didn't want to give away any
Yeah.
spoilers. So that in between time, what was that like?
It was really hard because, yeah, I couldn't say anything. Like, I couldn't tell anyone how I had done. Like, I had to come back home and be like, I mean, yeah, I got kicked off the show. And, like, I couldn't tell anyone. I couldn't tell anyone I made it on a team, anything. So that was definitely very difficult
Yeah, I
to
bet.
just keep that to myself.
And then all of a sudden the show finally goes live and everyone sees, and then you're like, you get to kind of almost relive that experience all over again, right?
Yes, it was amazing. That's probably like one of the best experiences I've had so far, especially like getting to kind of like start a career that way. I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah. So you kind of started your career and then you took a break. So what has, I guess, maybe the last 8 or 9 years been like musically, but then also as you worked through your mental health?
So after The Voice, I really kind of just kept going with it, put out a couple singles, and then I feel like I needed some time to kind of find myself, and I'm glad I did. I think sometimes I beat myself up about that, and especially because the music industry and country especially is so, they're like, oh, we want like 18-year-old girls, like
Yeah.
the younger the better. And so I've kind of had a bit of a complex about that for a little bit. Um, and it's just recently that I've kind of came to terms with it. And I'm kind of like, you know what, whatever, like I'm just going to keep doing me and it's fine. And if that's what the universe wants for me, then it'll happen the way, it's supposed to. And, but I think I just needed that break to kind of experience life and give me some experiences and things to write about, which I definitely had a lot of traumatic things happen in
Mm.
my early 20s that at the time sucked a lot and obviously was very difficult for me. But I can't say that I'm not glad that it happened, which kind of sounds weird, but I feel like things like that shape you into who you're going to be. And as an artist, I'm like, I feel like I have some great materials to write things about. So
Right.
so yeah, it's been a little messy, but I wouldn't change it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably how a lot of people feel about the trauma. You know, when you're going through it in the moment, it is excruciating, and you can get really blinded by the idea that maybe this is how it's going to be for the rest of your life. I know when I went through kind of a traumatic shift in my career and in my life, it kind of felt like whatever the anxiety and depression I was holding inside, I couldn't see the end of the tunnel. I felt like this was how it was going to be forever. And if that's how it was going to be forever, then I didn't want to be here anymore because I couldn't see that other side. And I'm so glad that there were people in my life who helped me see the other side, who helped me see that on the other side of this depression or on the other side of this trauma, life would be beautiful again. And now I can look back on that experience and be like, wow, because of this, I'm here now. Like, I would never have in a million years thought I'd start a podcast, one especially about mental health. And yet here I am because I knew that what I'd gone through was so pivotal in my life that the people who told me their stories helped me get through some of the worst of it. So if we can share our stories and help other people, realize that they're not alone, then that felt like a calling to me that would never have been discovered if it wasn't for having gone through that.
Yeah, I love that for you. First off, I think that's amazing. And it's amazing to find your calling, especially when you can help people, and help them heal. I think there's not enough of that in the world, and especially with mental illness, because it's kind of just in the last 20 years or so, and it's still a little bit of like a taboo subject. I mean, it's definitely gotten so much better, but I feel like spreading awareness that, it is okay and it is normal, and there are way more people than you think struggling with that, and that, we can all relate to each other. That's so important. I love what you're doing. I think that's
Oh,
incredible.
well, thank you. I know I found storytelling as kind of a healing aspect, and I'm sure it's probably the same thing with music because music is its own form of storytelling. And so I'm curious as to how do you write your songs? What's that process like to help you take something that was so negative in your life and turn it into a positive because it's maybe helping you heal or hopefully helping other people heal too?
It just kind of depends. I mean, and sometimes I like songs to be depressing because I think sometimes you need that too.
You need a
I'm
good
a big
cry.
advocate. Yes, I'm a huge advocate of that. I will never be the friend that's like, "Oh, don't cry." Like, I'm like, "Yeah, girl, cry it out." Like, like I think sometimes you need that to get through it. And so it just kind of depends. Like, so sometimes I do like writing songs that have happy endings, and sometimes I like writing songs that it's like make you feel your hurt a little more, because I think there's not enough of that either. Like, I think normalizing feeling pain, that's like the first step to like recovering from it, is feeling your emotions and allowing yourself to like, as long as you don't stay there too long, but
Yeah.
I think that's important. So
Not a lot of people want to talk about mental health issues, especially their personal struggles with it. Whether it's Joe Schmo down the street or your A-list celebrities, you just have a lot of people who don't want to talk about it or don't think you should talk about it. So I'm curious for you, why do you want to share your mental health struggles? What's kind of that catalyst?
um well, one, like I said about it being still a little bit taboo, but it's getting a lot better. I think, like, being somebody that can help take that stereotype away, one, is a huge, I think everyone should be doing that, because it's crazy how far we've come, especially like the women, especially because women, I feel like with hormones and all the other things that contribute to mental illnesses, like, I mean, you look at back 50 years ago and they would like send women away for being crazy.
Right.
And it's like, like, I'm so glad we're past that, but we're still not to the point we should be. And so I feel like sharing that, especially when, I mean, if you look at my Instagram and stuff, or anyone's, you're like, oh, they probably just have it, normal and don't struggle with anything. And I think everyone has struggles, and a lot of people have mental illness, and sharing that common denominator, I feel like, is really important to help each other grow and feel a little less, like, why am I like this? Because there's nothing wrong with it either, like,
Yeah.
it's just, that's what makes you beautiful. And yeah.
Yeah, it's part of ending the stigma, I think, by almost debunking what depression looks like, and you are the kind
Yes.
of person, you've got this bubbly personality, you exude confidence, you're on stage performing. People probably don't think that you would ever struggle with depression or anxiety or anything like that. And yet you are the face of anxiety and depression just as much as me, just as much as the man or woman who is struggling to get out of bed in the morning. We've all been
Absolutely.
there, and yet here you are, still here, still trying, still working your hardest to live a life that you love, which is the most beautiful thing that I think we can do, is to not let whatever struggle that we have keep us from living the life you love. That's kind of the whole theme of this platform. And so with you, I mean, you're still here, you're still creating music, you found a way to live a life that you love despite your struggles, and I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Likewise. Same to you. Yeah, I feel like sharing that is important for that reason. I mean, there's definitely been some low points where music is the farthest thing from my mind, and I've
Sure.
been just basic survival,
Yeah.
like questioning is anything worth it. And so I feel like sharing that and hoping that people can find inspiration in that. Not only that, but the fact that ADD and the anxiety and all the things like that is important to me, because, and I have a lot of friends too that have, struggle with the same thing. And it's just, people might not look at someone and think that, but people have more going on underneath than you think. And if I can help somebody, find a reason to keep going or a reason to push through or try a new method of coping with it, then I feel like I've contributed to society. And that's
Yeah.
important to me. I'm so big on that.
Yeah, exactly. You're here for a reason, you're here for a purpose, and sometimes
Yes.
anxiety or depression can keep you from being able to see what that purpose is, and you can feel like you must not have one because you can't see it. But hopefully, you have people in your life who are speaking those lies out of your life and who are telling you truth, that you are here for a reason, and that yes, you're going through a rough season right now, and that's okay, but you're not going to stay here. And hopefully, being able to
Yes.
point that light to the end of the tunnel that's like there, just like look at it, focus on it, know that it's coming. I don't know when it's going to get here, but I promise this won't last forever. And hopefully, everyone has those people in their life to be the truth speakers, because sometimes our own brains just aren't capable of doing that.
Absolutely. It hurts me to think that
Yeah.
anybody doesn't have that, because your brain can be very powerful against you. And it's important, yeah, to know that, like you said, I love that it's just a season, and things are gonna, you'll be back on the up eventually. You've just gotta power through it.
Exactly. And you eventually refound music again after your little hiatus and stuff. So, what was the turning point for you to get to that point where you're like, you know what? I'm ready to do this again?
So I honestly, this is so cheesy. So my boyfriend actually is a lot of that. Until we got together, I was still going out all the time. I would probably define myself as an alcoholic. Back in those days, out of just depression, like I was just sad, and I hated feeling sober and having to sit with my feelings. And not like alcoholic, like I'd get up and drink every day, when I'd wake up. But my friends and I, we'd go out all the time. And I was just always going out. I was always trying to, numb the pain somehow, whether it was alcohol or a casual relationship or things like that. And when I met him, I kind of slowed down, and he's been so encouraging to me in music, which is rare. It's so hard to find people that understand what you do as a musician, because we're difficult people to be with, especially to like the average person who isn't in the same industry. It's a lot. There's a lot going on, and there's having such big dreams and constantly going and getting attention and stuff. And so it's hard to find somebody that gets that and is supportive of it. And he's been amazing. So he actually really has helped me kind of get back into it and have some goals. And I found um, more inspiration, and I've been able to just sit down and kind of sit with myself, and that's important to songwriting too. And so I've kind of been able to dive into that further, and yeah, he's been a huge blessing. So
Well, I love that, and I hope that everyone finds that person in their life, whether it is a significant other or even just a friend or a family member, because those people in our lives, my husband is that person to me. When they come into your life and they hold your hand through the struggles, and they're the ones encouraging you through the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows, they're that person that gives you hope that this depression or this season of struggle doesn't have to last forever, and life will be beautiful again on the other side. So I love that you have him.
absolutely.
Would you say that music has also been a very cathartic part of your healing?
100%. I think being able to finally like sit with myself to like, I mean, I feel like I've healed from my trauma in a lot of ways, but being able to sing about it just it makes it feel a little better too. I feel like I haven't really started writing that much until the last like 2 years or so. Um, but yeah, we actually, it's weird. I feel like we took a trip to Bali, and I feel like that was a really healing thing for me.
Oh.
Like everything's so spiritual there, and I started writing songs when we were over there. And this was like 2 years ago, I think we went. Um, and I don't know, I just feel like that changed me a lot as a person and helped me slow down and kind of think on my traumas and put them into words. And so, yeah, I also owe it to that.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing. Oh, I would love to go to Bali. When you write about trauma and you perform a song that maybe is difficult or it's about a difficult time in your life, what do you hope the audience connects with when you talk about or sing about something that has been so personal to you?
Honestly, whatever they can from it. I know it kind of varies for me. Like sometimes you can hear a song and it might not specifically be about the same situation you've been in, but you find some comfort in that song. And so, however, I can do that for other people or just make them feel good, you know, anything I can to like inflict some emotion in people, I is the whole goal. um, with the traumatic stuff, yeah, whether you get a good cry out of it and you are, feeling a little better after getting that out, or just knowing that someone else went through the same thing as you and it's going to be okay. Um, yeah, there's so many things that you can take from and interpret in your own way in different lyrics. So whatever, if someone can walk away and feel better after listening to anything I've put out, I'm accomplished.
I love it. It's part of redefining what success is. It's not about the number of song clicks or how much money you make, but it's about really that connection that you can get and create with your audience.
Absolutely.
Well, I know that your music, whatever you put out, and I am looking forward to all of the new stuff, it's going to be great. It's going to help people. I'll ask you one kind of final question, and that's if you could give anybody, kind of one piece of advice, anybody who's struggling with their mental health and still trying to create that life that they love, what advice would you give them?
Just to keep going, and no matter how hard it is, even if it's just little things, like find joy in your everyday. Whether it's just, and some days I know it's hard to get out of bed, and that's okay. Like lay in bed if you have to, but if you can find anything that brings you joy, whether that's like painting or it's going on a bike ride or like getting a pet, I anything like that, um, I are the first steps. I feel like.
Yeah.
To finding inspiration to do the things that you love.
Finding joy in the little things. I think that's so important. If you can do one thing that brings you joy a day, if everybody could do one thing that brings them joy a day, I think the world would be a much happier place.
Yeah, well, and I feel like honestly, quarantine has been great for that. Like, so many people have had the time to do that, and you never know. You could baking might make you happy, and you could bake some cupcakes, and bam, now you're opening a bakery and you're building the life you love, and you're doing something that, brings you joy every day. So I think that's so important.
It really is. I have enjoyed talking to you so freaking much. I can't believe that it's been almost an hour now. So please let people know where they can find you on Instagram, where your music's listed, all of that fun stuff.
Firstly, likewise, I have enjoyed this so much. I've had a great time. And secondly, you can find me, I'm on Facebook. I have rebranded to just go by Gracia, but we're in the works of getting that changed on Facebook. So it's still Gracia Harrison, or it's facebook.com/Gracia Sings. My Instagram handle is The Life of Gracia. And I do have Twitter, but I tweet like once every 6 months. So
relatable.
You can follow me. I'm not very active. I do have a TikTok, and that's, I think, like linked on my socials. And then my website, it's iamgracia.com.
Wonderful. I'm so excited, and I will, of course, put the link to Hey. I know it's on Spotify. That's where I've been listening to it nonstop, yes. So I'm going to put that in the description as well. Gracia Harrison, thank you so much for being here with us today. You have brought so much joy to me, and I know that you're bringing joy to all of our listeners, too.
Oh, thank you. I love to hear that. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Drawn Podcast, empowering women battling anxiety, depression, and other mental illnesses. For I believe we've been drawn together to create a life we love. You can find more amazing content at my website, KatieRochetco.com, or follow me on Instagram at The Drawn Collection.